Hello, and welcome back to a new episode of GWeek.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be covering stories from DC's budding cherry blossom season and the latest in GW's search for a new moniker.
We'll also dive into the latest on the Turkey-Syria earthquake and the Norfolk Southern train derailment. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Morgan Miller.
And I'm Emma Grace Myers.
GW has officially announced the final 4 moniker choices. In an email sent to students, staff, and faculty on Monday, March 20th, GW asked for feedback on the following: Sentinels, Revolutionaries, Ambassadors, and Blue Fog. The GW community was asked to rate their perception of the monikers on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being most positive. The email states, quote, "GW is committed to engaging our community as we develop a new moniker. Based on the nearly 20,000 points of feedback we received from the GW community, the university has narrowed its moniker options," end quote. As the community continues to debate over the issue, GW is one step closer to replacing the previous Colonials moniker.
GW has officially lifted its mask mandate in classrooms in all school buildings. To find out how students are feeling about this change, GWeek reporter Pravina Kadka interviewed students about this issue.
Following their decision last year to make COVID-19 masks optional for students, faculty, and staff, GW has officially dropped its classroom mask mandate. While GW has rescinded the mask mandate, in an email to the school, it stated, quote, "Although masks will be optional on our campuses, their use is strongly encouraged. N95 masks continue to be available for free to community members at GW's test sites and remain the most effective way to protect yourself and others from COVID-19. End quote. The school asks that students, faculty, and staff be respectful of others' choices in wearing or not wearing masks. So what are your thoughts about GW lifting the mask mandate?
I'm going to be honest, nobody really followed it anyway, so I guess this was just a long time coming. Like, even in classes where the teachers are like, wear your mask, like half of the kids didn't wear it anyway.
Oh my God. Well, as one of the last major institutions in the United States to lift it, I am in favor, only because I've worn a mask for 3 years.
I think it's a good idea. Like, obviously people have been going without masks, like going different places without them for a while, so I think it's kind of nice that like we're finally able to, like, I feel like it's hard to hear people with their masks on sometimes in class, and if it's like a big lecture, sometimes it's hard to hear the teachers, so I feel like it's good for everybody, and it's like, it's nice to know that the pandemic's finally like basically over and we can just kind of like relax and have things return to normal like it was 3 years ago.
I feel fine about it. I think it's about time, seeing as how things are going, and COVID being at such a low. I think it's good. People were already kind of taking their masks off anyway, so I think it makes sense.
Does that make you concerned for your health?
Not really. I'm young and I'm completely vaccinated, so I wasn't super concerned, but I do feel bad for like the older professors who like aren't as like healthy and have as healthy of an immune system as I do.
I think I'm like probably about the same, just because like obviously I like to be pretty careful with my health, but like I still go a lot of places. Like as college students, like we're kind of exposed to stuff a lot, so it's like it's good to just obviously like take precautions, like washing your hands and different things, and maybe wearing a mask if you're in like a super public place and you feel like it's necessary if you're sick. But like overall, I'm not like super concerned about like my health as a college student here. I feel like things are pretty sanitary and people are pretty careful if they're sick and stuff.
I think I'm as concerned as I've been with like COVID in general and like sickness and illness going around in general. Not having the masks doesn't necessarily make me feel any differently to that.
The same feeling. I haven't felt concerned with the mask mandate lifting at all, no.
Would you have preferred if the mask mandate was lifted fall semester, or do you think it's better that it's been lifted spring semester?
I think it's probably better for spring semester, just because I know there's immunocompromised people at this school and different people who like would prefer it to stay up. Like maybe if professors would like it to stay up. Like I think it's good that now that it's a little bit later, it's definitely later than other universities, I think everybody feels comfortable with it.
I have no preference. To me, if a professor wanted the mask worn indoors, I would do it. So it really wasn't a matter of when it happened, just if it happened ever at all.
I think there were more troubles to come with the pandemic, and I think lifting it now was probably a better option.
Many states and government facilities lifted their mask mandates last year, but GW continued its mandate, citing concern for students' health and well-being. In fact, according to AARP, no states currently require masks in public places. While this may differ for, quote, high-risk settings, end quote, the majority of the United States is no longer required to wear masks. For GWeek, I'm Pravina Kodka.
Thanks, Pravina. The French Parliament adopted a new bill that raised the retirement age to 64 from 62 earlier this month, despite 2 no-confidence motions against the government. According to NPR, the bill still has to go through a review by the Constitutional Council before it can be signed into law. However, French protests have not taken this bill lightly. Over the course of 6 nights, there have been many demonstrations and arrests. According to the BBC, overflowing, neglected garbage bins have been set on fire, and 13% of petrol stations have been running low. Also, according to BBC, President Emmanuel Macron told his colleagues that he has no regrets about the reforms, since it was, quote, always a good thing if you want to be respectful of our institutions, end quote.
Cherry blossom season is finally here, earlier than expected. Climate change has made its mark upon the highly anticipated festival. Preston Summit has the story.
Cherry blossoms are blooming all around Foggy Bottom, much to the delight of GW students eager for the promise of spring that comes with these beloved trees. But some wonder, isn't it a little early in the season for cherry blossoms to be blooming as early as mid-February? This isn't a novel concern. Records in the past few years have shown an early bloom and an ensuing spring due to warmer weather. DC's tidal basin is known for its iconic bloom and impressive display of Yoshino cherry trees. CNN reports that among these trees is what the National Park Service calls the indicator tree, which enters full bloom consistently around 10 days before its neighboring trees, allowing them to ascertain when peak bloom of the cherry blossoms will cover DC in a beautiful blanket of pink. This year, the indicator tree began its bloom mid-February, putting 2023 in stark competition with the earliest peak bloom on record in 1990 of March 15. While peak bloom does vary yearly, the National Park Service consistently places peak bloom around late March to early April. So why such an early bloom this year? The answer is simple and alarming. With the rising trend of global warming and pollution, temperatures increasing leads to warmer winters and the early blooming of plants and trees. According to National Public Radio, cherry blossom trees rely on a cold month of winter weather to properly bloom in time for spring. And if warming trends continue, it could mean the end of the blossoms altogether. The National Park Service has also expressed concerns that rising sea levels could oversaturate coastal cherry blossom trees with salt water, weakening and eventually killing them. Although the cherry blossom trees may be blooming surprisingly early, these heralds of spring will certainly brighten up the landscape of DC for weeks to come. For GWeek, I'm Preston Summit.
Thanks, Preston. Former President Donald Trump has spoken out over reports that he will be arrested. Reports emerged last week that the Manhattan District Attorney was coordinating with former President Trump's Secret Service detail to arrange logistics of a potential arrest in connection to alleged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. Trump took to his social media platform Truth Social to discuss the issue. He stated, quote, "The far and away leading Republican candidate and former President of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday next week." Nonetheless, as of the date of broadcast, Tuesday, March 21st, has come and gone without any arrest taking place.
This month, Prince William arrived in Poland unannounced to speak with British and Polish troops stationed near the Ukrainian-Polish border. The prince also met with Polish Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak. He personally thanked Polish and British troops for their partnership in defending Ukrainian freedom and called it, quote, crucial, end quote. William also spoke with young Ukrainians, listening to their experiences of resettlement in Poland. He later met with Polish host families and thanked them for opening their hearts and homes to Ukrainian refugees.
For an update on the Turkey-Syria earthquake as well as relief efforts, Marisol Cabrera has the story.
Following the 7.8 magnitude earthquake that hit Turkey and Syria on February 6 of this year, countries had faced nearly 2 weeks of aftershocks as well as a 6.3 earthquake on February 20th, according to World Vision. Almost 50,000 people have been killed and hundreds of thousands have been displaced from a region that has already faced instability due to conflict and the refugee crisis. According to the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, between Turkey and Syria, nearly 7.1 million children have been affected, while over 120 UN convoys have been bringing relief supplies including food, water, shelter, and cleaning essentials. Many are still suffering and in desperate need of help. GW Today interviewed GW's Turkish Student Association President, Berk Gorgan, who explained how many people in the area, including his own family members, who have all been confirmed as safe, need blankets, sleeping bags, and other winter clothing. The organization held a drive to collect these goods on February 8th, 9th, and 10th, and stated the collection had been very successful. If you're looking to help survivors dealing with the after effects of this disaster, UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, and the Turkish Red Crescent are accepting donations to provide aid for families and children who have been affected or wounded by the earthquakes. Mercy Corps, another organization, has also been helping rebuild the infrastructure of northwest Syria, an area that has been hit hard and home to many refugee camps. We here at GWTV are sending our thoughts and prayers to those affected abroad, as well as members of our own community who are dealing with this crisis. For GWeek, I'm Marisol Cabrera.
Thanks, Marisol. During the week of March 13th, an investigation into sexual misconduct in the workplace by District of Columbia Mayor Muriel Bowser's former Chief of Staff, John Falcicchio, has begun. The investigation was initiated after an anonymous employee of DC came forward with allegations of Falcicchio's inappropriate advancements. A statement released by the alleged's attorneys reported that, quote, "This behavior is long-standing, and our client is cooperating fully with the investigation," end quote. Falcicchio resigned on March 17th, citing no explanation as to why he left both his positions of Chief of Staff and Deputy Mayor for Economic Development. As of now, the investigation remains ongoing.
It seems in recent weeks that more attention has now been focused on America's railroad industry following the February derailment of a Norfolk Southern freight train. Byung So has the story.
On February 3rd at 8:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Norfolk Southern Train 32N derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, spilling over 100,000 gallons of hazardous chemicals. This was due to the fact that at the time of the derailment, the train was carrying over 20 cars of hazardous chemicals ranging from vinyl chloride to benzene residue. Furthermore, of the 51 cars that did jump the track, 11 of those cars were the aforementioned hazardous chemical carrying cars. Currently at this initial stage following the derailment, a definitive cause has not been determined, but as per the NTSB's preliminary findings, it has been reported that a mechanical problem with one of the rail cars on train 32N may be to blame. In this instance, security camera footage had picked up the sight of sparks coming from underneath the train before the derailment. Nonetheless, while the investigation into the cause of the derailment proceeds, the total damage to the environment around East Palestine, Ohio is also becoming a major concern, with the total amount of animals being killed by exposure to chemicals now estimated to be at 43,222. A direct impact to the human population is yet to be seen, but local and state health procedures have been in place over the last several weeks so as to prevent possible poisonings or other negative effects from chemical exposure. More recently, however, lawsuits surrounding the costs of 32N's derailment, be it ranging from evacuation to the medical procedures to general environmental damage, have been filed against Norfolk Southern and are currently pending. Interestingly enough, as of the date of this broadcast, a new lawsuit against the railroad has been filed by the company's shareholders under the alleged claim that the railroad has, quote, defrauded them by putting profits over safety, as reported by Reuters. Either way, the legal side of this with relation to this tragedy is something to behold. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Byung. Silicon Valley Bank, dubbed the emblematic bank of the tech industry, was shut down by regulators. This is the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis. Reportedly, the bank has been undergoing financial problems due to rising interest rates for some time. After the bank's losses became public, clients grew concerned, leading to their tech-based clientele to pull funding, sending the bank under. Despite its rapid decline, economist Jonas Golterman explained that there is no reason to suspect a crisis on the level of 2008, as the Silicon Valley Bank collapse appeared to be more industry-specific, and most other banks have learned to be more, quote, diversified, end quote.
Next, our very own Sam Rajesh will be introducing a brand new segment to GWeek. She'll be joining us from the studio. Stay tuned.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the kickoff of GWTV's new talk show segment. I'm your host, Sam Rajesh, and each week I get the privilege of talking to some incredible and inspiring people all around the globe. Today's guest is Reena Nainin, a notable GW alumni and Indian American television journalist. Reena has reported for CBS, Fox News, and ABC News, and is the founder of Good Trouble Productions. She is currently the co-host of the Ask Lisa podcast and the Hero podcast on foreign policy. As Reena puts it herself, from Baghdad to Beirut to Benghazi, she has made finding and telling stories her life's work. She has strived to bring human stories to life. Nainin was named one of Glamour magazine's Women on the Front Lines in 2011, and she continues to take the world by storm. And best of all, her journey starts right here at GW, just like all of you watching here today. Reena, thank you so much for being here today, and I'm so excited to kick off this new segment. How would you introduce yourself? Reena, you were a lot of things to a lot of people, but who was Reena Nainin to you?
Today? Okay, today, I think Reena Nainin today is probably different from Reena Nainin, college student at GW, but I think I would describe myself as mom, journalist, and entrepreneur.
Awesome. So, Reena, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about your time at GW?
Happiness. I think that's the first. I just loved the 4 years that I spent at GW, the friends that I made that are truly lifelong friends to this day. I loved the energy because I was able to be in the atmosphere of what I hoped would be my future career, which was Washington and politics and journalism. I just remember, no matter how hard the tests were or what I might have been going through, I just loved being in the city, being in Washington, D.C., and being on campus. I felt energized and excited to be on campus.
It's amazing. So how did your time at GW shape your personal and professional trajectory?
Oh, I think it had everything to do with shaping my trajectory. You know, the access that you have at GW to lawmakers and newsmakers and innovative thinking, all of that had profound work on the next few decades of my life. And I think being in that environment of being around those people helped me to look at the world and look at journalism in a different light.
Are there any special people that you want to shout out that made your time at GW so special?
Absolutely. I think I would have to shout out the School of Media and Public Affairs, because that is what got all my thinking moving in a different way. I really love the school a lot, and the professors that I had there. There were so many of them that changed the course of my thinking and how I looked at journalism and prepared me in the newsrooms. Those classes that I took really made a huge difference in my life. But I would have to say probably, I think everyone who knows me knows that Steve Roberts has a very, very special place in my heart, and always will. And I think he was hugely instrumental in shaping my career and opening doors. But there were a lot of other professors there as well who helped. I want to acknowledge. I'm really grateful to the school.
That's amazing. I'll second that. Stephen Roberts is an amazing professor. I'm in his class right now.
Are you loving it? Isn't he great?
I'm loving it. And I told him that I know you, and he was ecstatic. So it's a good
time. He didn't hold it against you.
No, quite the opposite. So this is a little bit cliche, but knowing what you know now, what would you want to tell 20-year-old Reena?
You know, it's interesting. I always hate this question because I think we spend so much time looking back on the past and not forward, of how sometimes we just need to change our thinking in the moment to get us to believe in ourselves and to believe that opportunity, especially now. I think I've been talking to a lot of students who are seniors who are now trying to figure out what next and are a little bit nervous about the economic climate and if they'll find, and I think this has been the case for a couple of years now, you know, because we had so much uncertainty. But what I would tell 20-year-old Reena at GW is listen to your gut. You've got it right. Just keep going. And I think for so long we feel like, oh, we need to go back and look, what would you have known when you were 20? And I think for all of you listening, your gut is good. Your gut can lead you and guide you. And so to trust that more, because I think most of us really know what we need and what we want and where to go. It's sometimes we lack the trust in ourselves.
That's amazing advice. I think I needed to hear that myself. What has being a foreign correspondent taught you about people in the world around you?
That humility in journalism can go a long way. I think often, especially American journalists, we go into other countries thinking we know the perspective, and even the US military going in and thinking we know how to, but not understanding the culture of another community, of another country. I think that social fabric is so important to understand just equally as much as the politics or the finances of a country. And I think that often we forget that. So I think having humility, whether you're covering Capitol Hill or the White House or China, I think that goes a long way, because when you're humble, you're open to seeing all the other things that you might not have been aware of when you went into that story.
For sure, 100%. So what has being a foreign correspondent taught you about yourself?
I think it's taught me that I really love dissecting other cultures, being immersed in other cultures, and then explaining it to a Western audience. That when I'm really interested in a particular foreign topic, that I just read voraciously about it, and I enjoy meeting with people to help me understand and explain it. I think that connection to people and community, and then wanting to distill that in a conversational way that makes people understand the bigger issues.
How did you deal with rejection and redirection in your career, especially as a young journalist right out of college?
Oh, that's a great question. Because I think it happens all the time. It will constantly happen. It's not just out of college. I think the one thing I think in my career, I've always known, like I said, where I wanted to row to, I was going to leave GW and I wanted to be a TV journalist. I wanted to cover politics. So I'd kind of gone on all these steps to achieve that. But I think you get into a certain point in your career where you're like, okay, now what, So I think sometimes redirection is an opportunity. And I think so often we don't think of it that way. But every time I've been redirected in my career, I'm so much happier. Somebody told me once, you've got to be grateful sometimes for the opportunities that don't come your way, because they were so not meant for you.
Some would say that there is a glass ceiling for women, especially women of color, in the workplace. So do you have any specific advice for women of color aspiring to work in media and journalism?
I think one of the greatest things that my Indian parents did for me is they never talked about my skin color being a disability or a disadvantage. In fact, they just said the sky was the limit, and they did not really bring home a lot of that negative talk. That wasn't, did we talk about sort of doctors in the community who should have gotten a promotion but didn't? I was aware of it. It wasn't like I was unaware of it, but they never said to me, which I think often happens with immigrant parents, like, oh, you can't be that. Oh, you can't do that. And especially in journalism, 25 years ago, it wasn't a career. Sam, as you know, being from the South Asian community, it wasn't really a career many people entered. It's quite different today. There's just such an amazing, the South Asian Journalists Association is just a fantastic organization. If you want to learn more about the community, I suggest you guys join. Anybody can join, really, and be part of their programming. But I think so often, not having heard that talk, I look back on my life that was instrumental. But yes, it is a problem. The opportunities for women, people of color, are just not the same because of networks. And I think you should be aware of it, but don't use it to hold you back. Find the people, and there are a lot of people, both who are from the community and not from the community, who really want to help and uplift good people, talented people. Find them. They're out there.
As a young reporter during the Iraq War, what exactly was going through your mind? How did you muster up courage, and what did you tell yourself each day to kind of overpower the fear and the doubt that you might have had in your mind?
I felt confident because when I was with Fox News, that was the time I was in Iraq. They had invested a great deal of money in security. Needless to say, so did so many other networks, and it's not a guarantee that you will be safe. So you go in obviously taking a risk, but I think I had spent pretty much 18 months before that really studying Iraq, studying the characters, the players, listening to logging the shows on Capitol Hill and what politicians were saying. So by the time I got on the ground, I had really had a good understanding of what I was walking into. I had wished probably 18 months earlier I had been given that opportunity. When you're young, it just can't come fast enough. But I have to tell you, sometimes not getting that opportunity is a good thing, because it prepares you to really knock it out of the park. And I think, arriving the first day in Baghdad and having our hotel car bombed 4 times in 10 minutes by Al-Qaeda, I was able to have a strength and a confidence, because I knew what I was talking about. And so while there was fear and uncertainty, I think I felt secure that I knew the content. And if you do the homework and you've done the research and you really understand, I think you can stand in that confidence. And even if it's a car bombing or a threat to your security, you can still feel secure in what you're saying.
That's really powerful. That's very brave and inspiring to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rena Ninen, for joining me this morning, and thank you all for listening. The full interview can be found on my podcast, Touch Points with a full stop at the end, and that can be found on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Until next time, GW. After this break, we will be back in the studio with Emma Grace, Morgan, and our lifestyle correspondent, Thea Lawson. Watch the space.
Raise high. This isn't just our battle cry. It's our call, our challenge. Because when you were called to Washington, you were called to higher expectations, to a higher standard. We are called here to advance knowledge, to serve society, to change the world. Is that too lofty? Too aspirational? Is it simply too much to expect? Not if your classroom is a Smithsonian, the IMF, or on the doorstep of the Supreme Court. Not if you have access to the most hallowed institutions and formidable leaders. Not if you are given the tools to change minds, shape laws, influence entire fields of study, advance our way of life, change the course of history. From the nation's capital to the 4 corners of the earth, to far below the surface and far beyond our atmosphere. Here, unique opportunities, the ones that many people work much of their lives to get, are within your reach from the moment you arrive. This is where you find new pathways for preventing global epidemics, where your unexpected friend propels a new scientific movement forward. This is where you push forward as a team to break records and reach new heights. Where your classroom is 68 square miles of the most consequential land on Earth. This is where you will make it happen. This is the George Washington University, and what we make is history. So stand up, be bold, take risks, press on, push harder, raise high.
We are now joined by our lifestyle correspondent, Thea Lawson, to talk about the National Cherry Blossom Festival. Welcome, Thea.
Hi, GW. Thanks for tuning in, and a warm, albeit belated, welcome back from spring break. What better way to celebrate a return to your regular schedule of classes than participating in one of DC's most beloved events of the year, the National Cherry Blossom Festival. I'm here to give you a rundown of this year's fun events and what to look forward to during the festival's run from March 20th to April 16th. Let's get right into it. This Saturday, March 25th, is the highly anticipated opening ceremony for the festival. Featured performers include Travis Japan, a dance and performance pop group from Tokyo, and a duo performance by singer Anna Suto and drummer Toshiyuki Sasaki. Other performers include Micah Stoltzman and a violin-cello performance by Mireille Ito and Benedict Klokners from the Yuji Ueno Foundation. Still looking for more to do this Sunday? Spring into fun with the Blossom Kite Festival. Participants can bring their own kite or purchase one on-site and let their creative juices fly by decorating it with a free kit. Watch your kite soar through the sky and enjoy performances by the Wings Over Washington Kite Club and Sakura Teiro Fest, featuring traditional Japanese drumming presented by the Sylvan Theater. Can't make it to this weekend? No problem. Petapalooza is scheduled for April 8th, a day-long celebration with activities, food, and entertainers, capped by a stunning fireworks show. The best part? Attendance is free. One of the most highly anticipated events of the festival is the Cherry Blossom Parade, scheduled for April 15th, the last weekend of the festival. Watch in awe as massive floats, marching bands, and balloons take over Constitution Ave in this iconic parade. Check out the official website for the festival for more information on tickets for these events and tricks to beating the traffic on these days. Also check out the throwback photos and videos of last year's festival and get excited for a celebration of the long-standing friendship between the US and Japan and the official start of spring. I'll see you there.
You know, Thea, I'm already starting to see people get to DC for the Cherry Blossom Festival. I was down by the Lincoln Memorial last night, and I noticed there were a lot more tourists than usual, and that's saying something.
I know, my mom's coming down from LA, so she's going to add to that.
Yes, wonderful. I know my grandparents have always wanted to make it down here for that festival.
Yeah, I always send pictures. I am so lucky in my dorm that I have cherry blossoms outside both windows.
That's wonderful.
And so I sent my mom and my grandma a little picture when I got back from spring break because they bloomed while I was gone. And I was like, look how pretty it is back in DC. And my grandma was like, oh, you're just having so much fun there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to go down to the tidal basin and walk it.
Maybe not so fun for those with allergies, but we'll make it through somehow.
Thanks, Thea. With the addition of a new bagel shop in Western Market, Deli and Call Your Mother are facing some competition. This will be Bullfrog Bagel's 4th location in the district, well known for its braised and slow-smoked protein. Bullfrog carries both bagels, with a range of sweet and savory flavors, and bagel witches, which include spreads, cheeses, veggies, and proteins that you can mix and match or pick a pre-made option. The owner, Jeremiah Cohen, explains how important fresh and handmade bagels are for the foundation for their success as a bagel company, and what has allowed them to grow in DC since their foundation in 2020.
2 inmates from a Virginia jail escaped their cell on the night of March 20th, but were later found at a local restaurant and are back in custody. According to the Washington Post, inmates John M. Garza, 37, and Arlie V. Nemo, 43, escaped the Newport News jail annex by digging a hole through the wall of their cell, using a toothbrush and later rebar found in the wall, originally meant to structurally reinforce it. They then reportedly scaled the outer wall and made their escape. The breakout was discovered when a head count was made that night and the inmates were not in their cell. With the help of local tips, the inmates were found at a local IHOP and are back in custody. In a statement to the press, Newport News Police Chief Steve Drew stated, quote, "I don't think we were dealing with menacing individuals. What we had was 2 individuals that were able to escape from the jail facility," end quote.
That wraps up this episode. Thanks for joining us. For GWeek, I'm Emma Grace Myers.
And I'm Morgan Miller. See you next time, GW.